Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and we'll be looking at the topic Business Continuity Management, the role of human resource management. Our facilitator is Adeola Peter Aziz, and I'm excited to have her share with us graciously, generously from our wealth of experience today. I'll have a very brief profile of us, which I will read. She studied biochemistry from the University of Ilorin, and she's certified. She's Senior Practitioner Human Resource International with HRCI, and she's also an Associate Chancellor of Personal Management of Nigeria. She has over 13 years experience. Most recently, she served as Head of People and Culture at St. Spirit until August 30th, 2025. Adeola specializes in building people strategies that drive business growth and is passionate about creating sustainable people-first workplaces. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Adeola Peter Aziz as she facilitates the session on business continuity management, the role of HR. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Good evening, everybody. And I'm very excited to be here today. Doctor, I don't know if you've made me the host yet, but just so to remind you in case you haven't. All right, done. Thank you, sir. Once again, good evening. Thank you so much. I'm happy that we're able to do this today. And like Doctor has said, a convener has said to us, we are going to be looking at business continuity management, the role of HR today. My name is Adeola Peter Aziz. So generally, I know that we are all conversant, or we are familiar with ensuring that things are on a smooth running in our various organizations. What is most important to both founders, CEOs, or even C-suite executives is to ensure that there is always an office or a business to run from time to time. And in all of that, if we do not factor in a situation where an event, a disruption could occur that would not allow that business to go on, and what we should do when that disruption occurs, then that lofty ideas of ensuring that there's always business to run to every day, or at least there's always an avenue to continue to do what we want to do or what we are set out to do, may not be possible. So essentially, that is what we are trying to look at today, how we can ensure that at no matter what happens in any case, in any crisis, we are still able to carry out our activities as a corporate institution, even in our personal endeavors and whatever we set out to do. So I'm hoping that in the next few minutes or hours that we're going to spend is going to be as impactful as possible. So let's look at the introduction of business continuity. It's all about the ability of an organization to maintain critical business functions and before and after a disruption. And it's also basically looking at plans, how you'll be able to put plans in place to minimize downtime and resume normal activities as quickly as possible. So it starts with being proactive, right? You anticipate that things will happen. There are things that you anticipate. There are disruptions that you would not anticipate. There are crises that you know might happen. There are some that you won't see coming. But in both cases, what business continuity management is saying is that be prepared. Just like a Boy Scout motto, you have to be prepared at all times. So what is the concept of business continuity? Like I said, proactive and then reactive. But of course, proactive is always ahead of reactive. We should not wait for things to happen before we start to do something about it. And that's where proactive comes in. So you anticipate it, and then you put measures in place to ensure that it doesn't happen. And even though if it happens, it does not impact your business adversely as much as it would have. So what are you also looking at? You're looking at maintaining critical functions. There are so many departments, there are so many teams, there are so many processes that ensure that the business of an institution is being carried out, right? If you're in production, there is human resource that ensures that staff are being taken care of. There is a production team itself that ensures that things are being produced. There is the marketing team that ensures that those things get to the end users, right? So in all of this function, as in preparing a business continuity management, what you're looking at is which of these functions or which of the things that you do as an activity are critical, right, to the business itself. And now you can ensure that that critical function is constantly on an auto run, so to say. And even when there is a disruptive event, it does not adversely affect your business. So maintaining critical function is one of the critical aspects of core concept of BCM. So you're also looking at disaster recovery. I know that a lot of times there is a situation where people assume that disaster recovery and business continuity management are the same thing, but they are not, right? In every business continuity management or management process or plan, there is disaster recovery in it. So technically, disaster recovery is a part of business continuity management itself, because you already planned for a disaster to happen, right? But business continuity is even looking beyond disaster happening. It's preventing disaster in the first place, right? Then you're looking at risk management. There is inherent risk in our businesses. So how do we ensure that this risk is minimized, managed, and then we don't allow it to crystallize? So operational resilience. One thing that BCM is assuring is to show that whoever the runners of these businesses are, right, they're able to, they have what it takes to ensure that business goes on at every point in time. Their resilience in the face of adversity or disruptions or crisis, that's what operational resilience is basically talking about. So like I said, key word here is disruption, whether it is an anticipated disruption or an unanticipated disruption. For when we are looking at, okay, what do you mean by anticipated disruption? In this part of the world, right, we anticipate that the likelihood of power failure is almost like 80% to 20. The likelihood for them to take power is 80% most of the time. So it would not be wise for any business not to have a backup, especially if you're heavy on using power. That's an anticipated disruption. Now, this kind of disruption is not something you have in other clients. There are places where they don't even think about power failure, right? But they will be looking at stuff like maybe an earthquake. They are prone to places where they know that there's a shaking in this part of the world all the time, or places where they are prone to flood. They know that, okay, at the particular time of the year, there's certainly going to be flood, but they are not looking at power. So it differs in terms of businesses. It differs in terms of climates and geographical locations and what have you. But what is important is, as business owners, as stakeholders of business, as strategic partners of businesses, it is a responsibility, a collective responsibility of every partners, of every stakeholder, to ensure that there is an avenue for you to continue to do business, even if not at the full capacity, but at a capacity that would also not a capacity that would ensure that there is revenue, right? And then even in the face of crisis. So we are going to look at some of the risks and threats that are that we can face in the business. Like I said earlier, I mentioned earthquake, which belongs to the category of natural disasters, flood, earthquakes, storms, the hurricanes, the fire outbreaks that you have recently in the US. So those are natural disasters that they are rarely anticipated, right? No one really look forward to having a flood or any of these things. But one thing that happens is that for a serious business, they are prepared ahead for this situation, if it's going to happen. And when it happens, what they are going to do. Before it happens, they prepare. During the events, during the crisis itself, they prepare. And after the crisis, they prepare for how they are going to return to normalcy of business. Cybersecurity threat is more like a broken record these days. There's fraud. If you're in the financial space, you know that this is something that cannot be joked with at all, because apart from your own funds as a company, they are responsible for other people's funds also. So cybersecurity threats of even in places where there are information, hospitals, if they're in hospitals, you don't want a situation where hackers could get access to patients' information and things that people are battling with secretly that are supposed to just be a privileged information between a doctor and the patient. It's all over the place because we slack on our responsibility to ensure that we put measures in place not to be attacked by any of these threats of cybersecurity threats. Power outage, like I gave an example earlier, if you're in a place, even places where they have constant 24/7 power supply, they are ensuring that the what if backup plan is in place for them to ensure that they run business. Supply chain disruption. There is what you call value chain, and then there is supply chain. So your value chain are the activities that happen within your organization. Supply chain is something that is bigger than value chain, right? But supply chain is talking about before a product or a service is rendered. But supply chain is looking at other activities from outside that would impact, that are responsible for the other activities that you do inside. So if you have to buy raw materials for certain people, for people in the FMCG, and then even most services, they have third-party vendors, right? So those are part of your supply chain. So it is responsibility of every company to think about reorder level, right? What you thought, within, if your plan or if your policy initially is every 2 weeks we reorder something, or we stock up, or we buy the raw materials, or we request for services of so person, then you should start looking at expanding that to about, let's have a stock that is going to last for at least 3 months, just in case something happens to the other side, it doesn't affect our own business, right? That's what business continuity is looking at. It's not even just looking at your own internal processes alone. It's looking at how external processes can affect you because you are working with an external vendor as well. So pandemics and public health crisis. We all know how COVID-19 in particular was very instrumental in disrupting the entire world. Like the world was on standstill in 2020. And I remember I used to be in the bank then. And then there was a training we went to, and someone said in the training that, that I foresee a time, and that was even before COVID-19, right? Maybe sometimes like 3 years or 4 years before that time. We were in a training and someone said, he believes that we can work from home. We all burst into laughter, right? Because we didn't see it come, like, especially as a bank, how do you want to work from home? How is that even possible? And boom, 2020 came, and you just realize that, okay, this guy actually has a point. So for people that have prepared ahead for that scenario, for that situation, they just moved ahead and continue to cash out from the disruption, from the crisis. Pandemic did not hold them down. It didn't change anything. Business just continue as usual, right? So that is what business continuity management is looking at. A scenario where it happens, disruption has occurred, but we are able to stay above this. Same thing with public health crisis, industrial action, employee protests. These are some things that could happen in different, especially if you're working with a large workforce and you think, oh, everything is going on smoothly, but you don't know that somehow there's a grievance, or maybe there's even a grievance that you've been trying to sort out, but for some reason it just escalated and there is an industrial action. In that kind of scenario, in that kind of situation, you don't want all your staff out of work, and then there is nothing that you can do about that. So can we anticipate, or what if our staff go on a protest? Okay, how can we stop it from happening in the first place? That's the proactive aspect. Even if it crystallizes, if it happens, what else can we do to not to ground the business? Okay, let's say it even grounds the business. How long can we push this for? When do we intend to come back into full normalcy? There should be a timeline for that. It can't be indefinite. You can't just leave your business to be on the rep for 1 month, 2 months, just because you are trying to sort out ingredients. There should be a timeline with which we intend to come back to normalcy. Key man risk. Because we are trying to cut costs, because companies are trying to minimize their head counts, you find out that there are people in positions where if they leave, that position becomes vacant, and there are key positions that could actually adversely affect the business. So you want to look at what are the roles that one person, or the key man risk in that position, or the man in that position is a key man risk. That means you need to find a successor as soon as possible. You need to put somebody as a mentee to start to understudy what that person does, so that at any point in time, if God forbid anything happens, at least we like that word a lot. God forbid, God forbid. It's beautiful. It's a good thing to have. You should be more of someone that is of the optimistic side, not the pessimistic side. But in all your optimism, let there be a backup plan. Human risk is not something we want to have in a company. And this is actually a responsibility more on the shoulders of human resource, right? Because now you're talking about the people aspect of the business. So there haven't been any situations where you have a human risk and it works well for a company. Number one, you give too much power to the man or to the woman, to the key actor. It gives so much power to the person. It dictates how the business is done, and then if anything happens to that person, it grants the entire situation, or it grants the entire process of that company. So when it comes to common risk and threats, human risk is one of the risks that HR should pay attention to. People affecting crises and incidents. You could have kidnapping for companies where there are lots of movements of people, maybe accidents, and all of these things. They are the risk and threats that could pose a disruption to business. And then you want to ensure that those kind of risks did not crystallize in our businesses. So why do we need BCM? Why do we need business continuity management? Why is it important? To safeguard people, to safeguard assets, to safeguard our information. So we're looking at ensuring that, because any employer who do not take their people seriously or do not care about the safety of their people would not be a responsible employer. And when your staff are looking at the management team, more of the attention is on, the HR, the human resource, our human resource did not do this, they are not looking at this. So you should, I'm sure we've all been in a situation where there's just so much expectation on your shoulder, you're wondering, oh, at the end of the day, I'm not decision maker here. My CEO is, but one thing that managements are looking out for is an avenue where we're able to present a strong opinion, a reason why they should go with something, right? Backed up by data, not just because I feel, I think. So no C-suits, no CEO wants to hear, I feel, I think. No, they want you to back up your recommendations by, this is what the statistics says. This is what the data suggests. This is why we should do this. So as safeguarding people, as much as we don't need to, there's no need for people to be cajoled as to why they should safeguard people. But there are certain instances where you might have to go the extra length to put certain things in place that they may find to be, oh, this is costing, this is costs, it's too costly to put that in place. But because our mission is to safeguard people, then you would have to defend why that cost have to be expended. Assets, like I said, the company has spent a lot of money on gadgets, on instruments and what have you that they use in carrying out business. If you don't safeguard them, then what are you trying to do? When disruption happens, business cannot continue. That a lot of data is in the hands of companies. In fact, I don't even see, even as simple as online vendors, right? If you want to buy anything from a shop online, or you want to from anyone, even if it's any kind of shopping, you are giving them your house address, you're giving them your name, your phone number, your card details, right? You're submitting your ATMs and all of that because it might be a means of payments. These are people information that needs to be protected by every means so necessary. So this is why we need to have a backup plan. So that in case of cyber threats, in case of an hacker or any situation that puts the information at risk, then there is a backup plan. There's a business continuity management plan in place to ensure that these informations are still be able to recover. You're able to recover them without risking them leaking out. So you want to minimize operational downtime. When a disruption occurs, what happens is that you can't function as you ought to. There are times you have to shut down for a few hours, a few minutes. You know, there are times you go to a bank and they say, oh, we have network downtime. And then you don't want to hear, we have network downtime today, tomorrow, next tomorrow. And you need access to your phones, right? So you start looking at, what do you mean by you have network downtime? There are so many network providers. Are you guys only using one network provider? So that operational downtime is bad for business. You're doing a BCM to ensure that operational downtime is drastically reduced, if not even totally eradicated. Maintain customer and stakeholders' trust. You need the confidence of your customer, you need the confidence of stakeholders, people who have invested in. Part of the stakeholder are the employees. You need the confidence of the employee to know that, okay, if something happens in this company, my company has done everything in their power to ensure that I am safe in this company. The customers are like, okay, I can trust these people to handle business. The stakeholders are, okay, I'm comfortable with, or shareholders, I'm comfortable with investing in this company because they know what they're doing and they're putting in place plans to ensure that business continues. That is what BCM does. There are certain partners, or there are certain organizations you want to partner with. And part of the things they're going to ask you is your BCM policy. And if you don't have that, they can't do business with you, with that company. So now when an HR is speaking about, oh, do we have a BCM in place in this company? Then the CEOs here should be open. They should be listening to that staff. So We also want to enable quick recovery and the restoration of services. We want competitive advantage, like the COVID-19 situation. When it happened, OPay, Moniepoint, they were ready for this kind of situation, and they just took over the market. The big and top financial institutions were not ready, and they got hit by the effects of that situation. After that, you saw the massive asset or human capital flight that happened with the banking industries. A lot of people, there was a bank that the entire branch, like I heard, the entire branch, everyone resigned within the space of 1 month because they jackpot, they relocated. And that is but you have a situation where anyone, even if you want to jackpot, if you're working from home already, you just simply continue what you're doing from wherever you go to. So that's the competitive advantage that the likes of OPay and Moniepoint, the fintechs that were ready at that time, they took advantage of, and they were in money. They continued to run business as they ought to. If all of these reasons that we have enumerated are not enough to have a BCM, thank God for regulatory requirements, right? There are regulatory bodies that makes it compulsory for companies to have a BCM in plan. One of them is International Standard Organization or International Organization Standardization, ISO. So, in fact, we're also going to look at that policy. Is ISO 22301 that it mandates companies to have a BCM in place in their company. So if you don't want to do it because you want to safeguard people, because you have competitive edge, or you want the trust of your customers and stakeholders, then you would have to do it because regulation requires that. And if that's, at least if every other thing is not enough to convince the stakeholders, the shareholders, the decision makers to have a BCM in place, then you know that when they hear regulatory requirements, it's a place where you can establish your points. So like I said earlier, speaking about the standard regulations, so to show how important BCM is, Business Continuity Management or Business Continuity Plan, it is an ISO 22300 of the 2019 policy, right? And in international standards for business continuity management specifies the requirement for documented step to protect against, reduce the likelihood of occurrence, prepare for, respond to, and recover from disruption when they occur. So there is a standard regulation for BSM. Then they also look at the 4 R's of business continuity, which is respond, recover, resume, restore, right? Event has happened, a disruption has happened, you have to respond. While at it, you ensure that you recover what you have lost or what has gone down, resume normal businesses, or at least resume some level of operation, then restore to normalcy. So that's what the 4 R's of business continuity is looking at. They're also looking at the 4 P's of business continuity, which is the people, process, premises, and provider. So these 4 components are the key areas where a business should concentrate its efforts to maintain operations during a disruption safely. You don't support the unimportant things of that business when a disruption occurs. You're supporting people, you're supporting processes, you're supporting the premises, and you're giving a lot of support to your providers. Like you're looking at your provider. Those are the areas where you should focus your energy on. Like I said, your provider, your vendors, people that your third party that you transact with. You want to ensure that whatever is happening at their end, they don't reflect or affect your own businesses. So organizations can obtain certificates against this standard, right? You can call on these bodies to check on what you have put in place. They would assess, and then they issue you a certification for being compliant with this ISO 22300 standards. Okay. So, what are the key components of business continuity planning or business continuity management? It starts with the risk assessments. So you identify potential threats and vulnerability in the business. What would happen, or you have, like I said, anticipated and the ones that you do not anticipate. Everything that could go wrong in the business, you're looking at it holistically. So risk assessment of your entire business is where business continuity starts from. And then when you have identified the risk, you look at how they can disrupt or their potential impact on critical business function, right? It's not all risks that are, like, risks are categorized into threats, they're categorized into moderate, low, moderate, and high. So you already know that when you look at moderate and high risk, they require a lot of your attention, a lot of your mitigation, anything to do to ensure that that risk is not crystallized. That is what we're looking at, especially for medium and high risk. But yeah, when you look at something that is a low risk, you can, they require your focus, but of course, you know that the energy is directed towards that. Then after your impact analysis, that is looking at what could happen or what that risk could do to the business, you develop recovery strategies, creating plans for how to recover during aspects of that business. What if this happens? What do we do? You start to develop your plans, your recovery strategies. Then you test and you conduct a drill, a simulation of that recovery strategy, right? And then you train everyone, the employee, the users, the stakeholders on how to react if that situation happens. What is worse than not having a BCM is having it and not training people on how to use it. So your testing and the training is next after you have developed a recovery strategy. Regularly testing the plan and training employee on how to respond to it. Then you document the process. It's also very important that, because when you're looking at regulatory body, like I said, and there's some partners that you want to do business with, they're asking you for your BCM documents, your BCM plan. That plan is not something that you explain to them. It's a document that you provide that have been reviewed and signed off by C-suites, your CEO or the CEO, and in the situation where you even have executive directors, they have all looked at it and they have all agreed that, okay, this is a BCM plan, and they signed it. It's a document that is physical that you have. So when it is not documented, it's as good as you don't have it. So you have to document the process, you have to document the simulation, what happens when it did, and then continuous improvement. It's from simulation or testing it that you realize, okay, this is what we have to do to better this response that we have put in place. So that's what continuous improvement is about. If you hear something happen somewhere and how they treated it, even if you have that already in your plan, did it work when they tested it over there? If it didn't work, what could they have done better? They're looking at everything all together. So these are the key components of business continuity: risk management, impact analysis, develop recovery strategies, you test, and then you train, you document your processes, and then you continue to improve that processes. So we are going to look at what happens before a disruption happens, before a disruption occurs, and then during the disruption, and then after the disruption. So before a disruption, what is your plan? What should you put in place? They are looking at, that's the phase of preparedness and prevention. That is a place of proactiveness. That's the place to say, okay, we anticipate this is going to happen. There's a likelihood that this is going to happen. There is no likelihood that this is going to happen, but what if it happens? Then this is what we are going to do. So that is where before disruption or preparedness and prevention, a BCM plan coming. So you're looking at risk assessment, like I said, developing and updating the plan itself, you're creating it, training employee, the testing and the simulation. It happens at the before. establishing communication protocols happened at the before. Then during the disruption, you have done everything to ensure that it did not happen, but eventually it has happened. COVID-19 happened. There is power outage. Even if you, like, a lot of people put their companies in a certain place in Abuja where I live, and then you just discover that at some point that place becomes the major location where you have power outage for so many reasons. And then where they're looking at like, oh, okay, this place may not have power. They are not the places that enjoy the power the most. So you have gone to a place where, oh, while you're doing your business plan, no, this place, this location have good power. Let's go there. Let's go to Wuse. That's where the good power is. And getting to Wuse is not providing the power that you need. So it's causing constant disruption in your business, and you are not able to carry out your activity. So what do you then do? Your goal is to avoid and minimize the damage to company's profitability, because you're looking at when a risk has crystallized, you're going to lose money. Why do you ensure that this does not hit too much into your profits? So that's where during disruption, that's what your focus is, minimizing the damage of what has just happened. Then identifying critical business function that has been affected, of course. Then you have a BC plan, a BCP already, right? You activate it. Then you establish crisis management team. There should be a risk champion. There should be a team that is responsible for ensuring that, okay, things that we just don't leave it, because when you think everybody is doing it, that's when nobody is doing it. So is it the responsibility of the risk team or the compliance team or an HR, somebody, the member of the HR team for a small business, right? Because every business requires a BCM. So for a small business, do you have a champion in the department itself, the HR department, to be the face of the policy? Then that person, the team, will get onto work, and then they begin to respond to the incident and gather data on the incident. They put up the document. I mean, whatever is happening, they put it together and make sure that they are documented. Then you protect critical assets and ensure minimal disruption. Then keep stakeholders informed. There is nothing as irresponsible to people as, oh, something is happening, and the people that have stake in that business, they don't know that it is going on. So are you sending mails to the right people? Even your staff, are they carried along to, okay, this is what we are going to do today, this is what we are going to do tomorrow, this is how we are going to be able to resume normalcy? There should be this information aspect. And that's why establishing communication protocol is done before disruption, right? You already know how you intend to communicate what is going on, who is the first respondent, and all of that. So communication is extremely important. You can't overemphasize that in any disruption or a disruptive event. So keeping stakeholders informed, both internally and externally, your customers, your stakeholders, your shareholders, and then your staff. They need to know what is going on. Then after disruption, what happens? You focus more on long-term recovery, right? How do we ensure that what has happened today, we don't keep talking about it in another 10 years, another 5 years, and say, well, because of year 2020 COVID, that is why we are still having this issue. No. When you have a BCM in place, it does that to your business. It helps you to move ahead quickly, and then you're able to recover from that scenario or from that situation on time. Normalization, you're able to restore to full business operations. You're focusing on recovery and improvements after disruption. You've been able to, you have brought the business back to what it should be. Review and assess the impacts and the effectiveness of your response. Yes, you responded to the crisis from what you have planned. Like I said earlier, after the response, was it effective? Even during, because simulation is great, right? I remember when we used to do fire drill in the office. Once it comes up, you hear people say, it's a drill, it's not real fire. And then they are sluggish about coming out. people would say, no, let me go back and carry my phone. Because what the policy says is that when you hear the siren, that sound fire, everybody come out and straight to the muster point, right? But you see a lot of people saying, oh, it's a drill. So they go back to carry their phone. No, let me carry my food. Let me carry my bag just in case. This is not the process. The process is get out fast and run. But when you see people not doing that at simulation, if that thing actually happens, there was a real fire and that same mentality is still there and it happens to people the way, the people that were going back to pick one thing or the other got caught, unfortunately, in that incident, then it means that when we're doing the next drill, there has to be something else in place. Maybe once that alarm starts ringing, there are people who would ensure that everybody is out, right? And make it, or even if you don't come out at the required time, you put a timeline to it. Okay, everybody should be out of this building in so seconds, in so minutes at your simulation. And everybody that did not come out at that time, you make sure that they stay in a settings. If it's retraining they need, if it's some level of, reprimand, like a query or something that is reflected in their file, right? So that they will know how serious these things are. That is what you do at updating and refining reviewing and assess. That's what you do at the effectiveness of the response, looking at the impact and effectiveness of your response. So you start to put in place corrective measures to ensure that whatever risk crystallized the other time did not happen again because of negligence or what have you, or maybe oversight. So update and refine the BCP based on lessons learned. I just spoke about that. Then report outcome to regulators, stakeholders, and the employees. Communicates. That's what after this part of the after disruption is just simply speaking about. We should communicate. So quickly we're looking at roles and responsibilities. Who are the people that are at the forefront of BCM, right? Leadership. A successful BCM program requires senior leadership commitments. If you don't get there, if you're not able to persuade them or make them understand the importance of BCM, you may not be able to get the required results you want from that management you're putting in place. So ensure that leadership understands what it requires or why BCM is important, and then they come on board and support it wholeheartedly. Business continuity manager. Like I said, you need a champion. Usually there are one of the places I worked also, we have a department called ERM, Enterprise Risk Management. So enterprise risk management then was, we had credit risk in that department who were responsible for checking people that wants to collect loan, right? Customers that wants to take a loan, they would check their 5 C's of credit and everything is in place. And then you have the compliance, risk and compliance themselves. They are the ones, internal compliance, to ensure that before external compliance or regulators come, you have what it takes. And then you have the risk managers, risk management team themselves. And this usually, they are the ones that are in custodian of this process, right? So you need a champion, you need a continuity manager, you need someone that you can't just leave it to. If you think everybody is doing it, then that is when nobody actually does it. So somebody should be the person, the go-to person when it comes to business continuity. Then the roles of department heads, they are your managers. They are the first line of leadership, right? We all know that the difference between leaders and management, while leaders are creating a space for creating the change, then managers are the one implementing. So you're looking at your first line of leadership. They are the one with your mid and entry level employees. So we are going to ensure that they follow through. So you cannot take them out of the equation. They have to be carried along in implementing a BCM. So their roles is also very important. And then, of course, all employees, they have to be trained. They need to know how to execute the plan. They need to know that they're supposed to be ready when a BCM plan needs to be implemented or need to be carried out. Okay, so what about the roles of HR itself? Because what we're looking at is how we come in BSM. So we are the policy interpreters, right? As much as the custodian of the policy, because there are even certain aspects of our work that is already a BCM, but because it is not called BCM, because if an employee needs to go, if there's a key man risk, that requires a BSM. So that policy is already sitting with you. That policy needs to be interpreted by you to anyone that wants to understand what it's about. So generally, every policy, your SOPs, it's important that you know how to interpret it too. So we are the policy interpreters of BSM, then welfare of staff, and then counseling assistants. At every point of this conversation, we know that people are the central focus of BSM. People is one of them, process is one of them, premises is one of them. So if the staff are not well taken care of, which is everybody calls the name of HR for anything. Oh, the HR is not doing this. The HR is not speaking on behalf of us about this. Even as much as possible, we as HR should be able to be the required bridge between management and people. There should be no instance where people think, oh, HR is just for management. They don't listen to anything you say. And the management should not say, oh, this HR is simply just emotional about everything on people. They are not thinking about the business. So it's important that we're able to balance this responsibility properly. You should invest in education, awareness to teach employees how to effectively prepare and respond to different crises. Then develop response and recovery plan. We assign roles and responsibilities. You decide, oh, if we do not have a risk management team in this company, who else is responsible for this? Do we have a compliance team? There's no compliance team. Do you have a cybersecurity person in the company? If there is no that, do you have the supply chain management team? You just have to decide and assign these roles and responsibility to a team. Then establish communication protocols. There's also this drill that happens in companies where even if there are so many, they break it down. So we did it at my company before. There is a phone call and they give you a word. They could say, I can't remember one of those words, but they would give you a word and you're supposed to call the next person, give the same words to the next person. So at the end of the drill, of the phone call, we want to know what's the last word the person gives you. Because now you see that you realize there is dilute of information, because another person will call you and be very fast and just say something, you're saying, hello, I can't hear you. And you assume that the person says car, you thought you had cats. It's pass on cats. Another person passes on rats. At the end of the drill, is HAT that got to the officer, and they started from CAR. So what was said was car, and at the end of it, we had HAT, HAT. So you can imagine what happens if that kind of communication protocol. So we are establishing, what do we do during crisis? How do we ensure that information do not get diluted, and the raw thing that you send forth is still what you get at the end of the receiver is getting. We have talked about persons responsible for internal and external communication, then address relevant issues that may emerge during the major operational disruption, then engage union in places where you have the demonstration or strike or industrial action, you're responsible for calling everybody together on the table. Yeah, Chinese whisper gates. So yeah, I believe that's what. Let me check the chat. Okay. Yes, thank you, Ngozi. That's part of the drill that happens when you're trying to ensure that communications are going through. Okay, good. So we engage Junior, we check on your sick employee. You want to know who has been out of work for a certain number of times and why they've been out of work. You want to follow up with all this. God forbid is a human risk, that kind of person. You can't just, you have to follow up. But when are you going to be back? What's going on with you? And all of that. You need to know. Not necessarily when are you going to be back anyways, because the first thing is the empathy part of it. You have to ensure that they are fine first, right? It's when it's probably like taking longer, you then have to start investigating. Is everything okay? What can you do to help them out? Even at that time, it's still not about just the business. You have to, because they need to know that, okay, my company actually care about me beyond just what I do for them. Typically involved with notification of next of kin, casualties, liaising with emergency services. When things happen for people at FMCG, there are so many sources where it is the way that the company handled the situation that lands them in the court, right? It's not just because, our person the hand got caught in the machine and then it just grinds the hand away. But the way the company responded to that incident, it goes a long way to determine whether that company is going to have a bigger case on their hand, or the company or the family would actually, the next of kin, even the person that the incident that happened to would understand that, okay, this was actually really an accident, right? How did we respond in that scenario is actually very, very important. And of course, ensure that compensation and benefits are they are at market benchmark. There is a part of compensation and benefit that talks about lagging. You want to, well, there are three of them. I remember lag. I can't even remember the other two. I'm sure somebody will put in the comment section for us. You lag, match, or lead. Yes, you either want to lag, you want to match, or you want to lead compensation in your industry. Those are part of the things that you look at, because that's part of your competitive edge. So when things happen, people should know that, okay, even though everybody is dragging a particular sector, because things change every day, things are changing regularly. A particular sector can suddenly become the hot cake, and then you have staff in that sector, and and people from other companies just keep poaching them away. So you have been able to establish a pay and compensation strategy that helps you lead, that makes sure that you are leading the industry. So that will keep you afloat in the situation where there is, talent flights or flight from a company. So the other thing we should do as to help us prepare for BCM, prepare for business continuity plan, is to ask questions. So what are the questions you should ask in your company? Does our organization have critical policies identified an alternative designed specifically during crisis? Have you put in place things to fall back on? Then how will our employee receive critical information in the event of crisis, right? How will our employees communicate with us and their colleagues to keep the business running? Then have we provided provided the right preparatory advice to employees in the event of a crisis? Is it up to date? You know, do we have short and long-term succession plan for critical management and operational roles? So these are a few of the questions you should ask as HR, right? If your answers to this question is yes, fantastic. Are they documented, right? Look for the documentation of these policies. Have they been trained to employees? Or is it the first line of employees that have this knowledge, you know? When in the situation where, oh, they trained us 5 years ago and you have changed staff. So you have to, there's a need for retraining. So it's not enough to have it. You need to document it. It's not enough to document it. Staff needs to be trained about these processes. So I think with this, we have come to the conclusion. And in conclusion, we are saying that business continuity plan, it underscores the importance of planning for every kind of disruption. By identifying potential risk and developing strategies to mitigate them, you can ensure that your business is prepared to weather any storm. So creating a comprehensive business continuity plan supported by technology like data backup can safeguard your operations and ensure a swift recovery in events of unforeseen challenges. As a piece of advice, business continuity is not solely HR's responsibility. Everybody has a role to play. You already likely have several processes and policies that support BCM. The key is to formalize them with a structured framework. And there's no need to feel overwhelmed by the task. You just need to take gradual steps towards understanding, developing, and documenting and refining the practices. What matters most is you are making consistent progress in establishing a BSM as part of our processes in individual companies. Thank you very much. I've come to the end of this presentation. So it's time for questions, contributions, and anything that we would like to add to this. Thank you so much. I think Doctor has another event that he is currently into right now. So yes, if we have anything to talk about, you can raise your hands. I would unmute you, and then you can speak about this. I'm not seeing any hand up yet. Okay. Thank you too. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Adela. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Stella. Thank you, Mr. Tosi. Thank you, Sister Stella. I hope I'm not missing anything, no contribution anywhere that I'm missing. All right. So in the event of none, thank you so much. I enjoyed my time with us today, and yeah, we look forward to the next one tomorrow, I believe. So thank you all and have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. All right. Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Olakunmi. Thank you very much. And Adepoju, thank you so much. Uzamaka, thank you. We're grateful. Yes, it's a must in every organization. All right. Thank you.